we're not saying digital media and streaming is the end of the world and you should cut all of your streaming subscriptions, live in a cabin in the middle of the woods.
Dude, that sounds sick right about now, I'm not going to lie.
TBH.
Self-sustainable compound. I don't have to interact with the world at all. Dude, that's the life.
I'm not saying it's not tempting.
I got a generator. I don't got to worry about anything. The world around me is burning down, but I got my DVD. Hello and welcome to the Nerdiest podcast, the show where nerds talk about nerdy things. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Nick Barrett, and as always, I am joined in person this time by my co-host, my ride or die, Mr. Jackson Glass. He is here in my room for the weekend, and we're actually recording 2 episodes today. Yeah. So this one and the next one will both be in person.
Right here.
So that's pretty sick. This is our second Third, technically.
Second real episode.
Yeah, second real episode. Third, we had that one bonus one we did at Disney that was in person.
Which we need to do again.
Yes, we need to go to Disney.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah.
Which means we can justify it on the taxes.
If you write
the
it off on your
government's
taxes,
like, why did you spend money on Disney? I'm like, well, Mr. FBI
taxman.
What's the name of the tax guy? IRS.
The IRS.
IRS man. It was for the podcast. So, but yeah, today we are going to be talking about, as the title suggests, the encroaching digital age and why that is not great.
Not good. No.
Not a good
it's pretty
thing,
bad. Mm-hmm.
But also not the worst thing in the world. And we're going to kind of like go through the history of all of that and break it down, give our thoughts. It's a topic we've wanted to do for a while. And it's just one we haven't gotten around to until now. But the reason it's tied to that is because we also, while Jackson was here, we went to a little store called McKay's, which is a like used movies, books, games, TV.
Ginormous store.
And we have, Jackson has a bag. I have a big bag of goodies here. So if you're watching on, or not watching, if you're listening, this is going to be one episode you might want to tune into the video version on Spotify or YouTube. So that being said, before we jump into our haul from McKay's, Jackson, how's your week been?
Hello. It's been really good. This weekend has been really fun. I just drove up here yesterday, and we were just kind of like, let's go to the store. We had a good time catching up. You know, life gets busy, and, you know, as an adult, kids, I'm going to warn you now. As an adult, you can't talk to your friends every day.
True.
And it's really rough, and it's really sad. So it's really good to take just intentional time to come together and catch up and have a fun. So it's been really good. I've been on spring break this week, and so I've gone on a couple trips at this point and just, you know, drove someone to the airport. As you can tell, I like to live it up. I've been eating good food. I've been sleeping. I've been playing Minecraft. This is just what I do on spring break, though. Like, fall break is when I'm like, I want to see the mountains because they're so pretty in the fall. But on spring break, I want to lie down. Right. Like, I just want to be horizontal.
Yeah.
So, break has been really good. I played a ton of Minecraft. But what I will say is the main activity I've been doing over spring break is editing. Because if you've been following along recently, you know that we recently did a short film with a friend of the show, Mr. Gavin Kopko was in it, and me and Nick and a couple of other friends banded together to film an entire short film in one day. And so that'll go up on YouTube eventually, but if you follow me on Instagram at The Glass Studios, you'll see updates on that. It'll go to a couple festivals before you get to see it on YouTube, but very, very exciting about that. Because I put maybe like 30 hours of editing this week alone into this short film. So I really hope you like it, and I hope you enjoy it. I think it's really, really good. That's my main activity. And then I just drove up here yesterday, and I was like, he's like, I'm hungry. What do you want to do? I drove the mom van because my car is totaled at the moment. So I pulled up in the Honda Odyssey and was like, skirt. And so I was here and I said, hey, I'm hungry. I want lunch. What, like, do you have any like local, like, just diamonds that no one knows about?
No.
And he said, have you ever been to Whataburger? So we had lunch at Whataburger.
I had a triple meat Whataburger. That was a terrible idea.
How many times have we had the conversation of you don't know how to order a burger?
Well,
you always order way too much.
Yeah, I need to get better. But I'm like, I'd rather be really full at the end of a meal than not be full enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't want to get to the end of my meal and be like, oh, I'm still hungry. Like,
right. Do I have to go back to the 3 Sonic cheeseburgers incident?
No. Please don't. That was too much.
Yeah.
Wow, 2 weeks ago, I had 3 Sonic cheeseburgers. And then yesterday, I had basically 3 burgers.
Right. Just the triple.
This cannot be good for my cholesterol.
It was better than last time I had Whataburger, which is ironically enough, the first time I had it was in Texas, which is where it's actually stationed. And I don't have one where I live. So he was like, bet, let's just go. Because it's like cheap. It's easy.
Up the road.
It's cheap and easy and fun. And, you know, it's whatever. It was good. I'm not mad.
It was okay.
You know, it was fine. It's fast food. Like,
it's
literally.
Like a better fast food burger than going to like McDonald's or Burger King or Sonic.
Right.
Like,
so it's like, you know.
It is what it is.
And then we hit the store and I bought a ton of stuff and we'll get into that here in a minute. But yeah, that's pretty much spring break. I'm ready to get back into the swing of school, and I'm happy to be recording here today. But I only have like 6 weeks left, and then it's summertime where I get to
and you'll be done with sophomore year. That's crazy.
Is crazy. That's crazy. And we'll have be halfway through college, guys. And I'm still strong on this podcast, and here we are. Don't let anyone tell you. Say it. If you're in college right now and you're like, I don't have time, that's a weak mindset, okay?
Yeah, that's Sigma or beta male mindset.
9 out of 10 people that say, I don't have time for X, watch 2 TV shows a week. So I think you have time. I just don't think you realize you have time. Keep that in mind. Anyway.
What does that say about me?
Well, here's the thing.
Because I say I don't have time for X, but then like I do watch 2 TV shows.
But also, what do
you
not have time for?
Writing.
Yeah, but like
editing.
Yeah, but like you still get it done though.
That's true. It does still get done.
There's a difference between saying I just don't have time, I'm not going to try, and I don't have time,
I'll get it done later.
I'll get it done later.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's a difference. The difference is you actually get it done.
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, there you go. There's your, I guess encouragement. That was kind of rude, but it was,
it's kind of deep.
You know, sometimes you just need a little push. So hey,
yep.
How was your week?
Well, my week has actually been really nice because I work at a TV station, for those who don't know, and we do a lot of production. So when we have a lot of production in a short period of time, the following week we'll do what's called a catch-up week because we have to edit all of that stuff. So the catch-up week is like no production. We just use it to catch up on all of our editing. So this has been a really nice week because it's been much slower after having 2 really busy weeks. So just being able to slow down, actually catch up on all my work, and even like just chat with my coworkers once we got all caught up and like have a chill week has been really nice. It's also been nice because I have gotten like no sleep this week at all because Sunday was the time change.
Oh my gosh.
The spring forward, so that threw me off.
I forgot about that.
So when we finished D&D last week at 8:00, I was like, oh, it's not 7. I need to go to bed in an hour to get up for work in the morning. So I didn't sleep good Sunday. I left small groups super late Monday. I left young adults at the correct time on Tuesday, but then I spent like an hour and a half on Twitter on my phone, so I went to bed late. Wednesday, I guested on the Nintendo Prime podcast. Shout out to
you.
And we didn't end until 11, which was past my bedtime. So like all of these days, I just did not sleep very well.
Yeah.
But it was nice because I had yesterday off. So Thursday, I was able to like actually sleep in or sleep in on Friday. So outside of that, I'm trying to think what I did. I don't know. I haven't done anything like super crazy. I've been binge watching Community because they're taking it off Netflix at the end of the month. I'm on season 5. so I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Once you get past the beginning of season 5, it becomes a pretty big slog.
Yeah.
Like, the gas leak year was not that bad. Like, it
Right.
wasn't great, but it wasn't awful.
Right. It's still watchable.
Yeah, it's still watchable. Season 5, I feel like we're getting to just because we lost 2 of our main cast by now. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. What else have I watched? Oh, we watched the first episode of Oshinoko last night.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, it's like a 90-minute episode.
Right. Because that's our next episode for the Jackson's anime adventure.
Yeah, and
if
I knew
you missed that,
he wasn't going to watch that episode by himself. And I also wanted to see his reaction because there's like a really big thing at the end.
Right.
I won't spoil it if you want to like watch it and get caught up before we do our episode. But it was really fun because it's been a hot minute since we've watched anime together.
Right.
And like we watched a little bit of Demon Slayer in line.
Right.
When we were at Disney that one time. And then
I forgot about that.
when we were in line for Rise of the Resistance for 2 hours.
No, it was 3.
No, you're so
It was
right.
way longer than 2 hours.
I
2 hours would have
downloaded-
been bearable. We watched like 4 episodes of Demon Slayer in line for Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah.
And then we got to a good one, and you were like, "Nah, you can't watch this on my phone outside."
Yeah, that's so
like,
true. Like you can barely see the screen. You're going basically just off audio.
we like shared. We each got like one Raycon.
So
it was really, you make do.
Yeah, we watched Oshinoko. I'm really excited to go back and watch through it again. I recently read through the manga, or like at least what would be the first season, because I have it physically, which we'll get into that in a little bit.
Let's get physical.
So I have the physicals. I read through it. I'm looking forward to rewatching because also season 2 starts this year. So I think it's really good. I can't wait to see what Jackson thinks about it.
No comment at the moment.
No comment at the moment. We don't want to spoil some great content for that
you're
episode.
Get there because, man, I had some thoughts.
He was jotting down notes like a champ. I'm so proud of you.
I was like, I don't know. That's some like freaky A24 crap. Like
now
right there,
I need you to actually finish it like days before we record so you can let your opinion form properly.
Yeah.
Instead of like, well, I just finished episode 11. All right,
it's
press
garbage.
Record. It sucks.
Well, okay. I need someone like level with me here. If you don't know, the concept of this show is that
an OBGYN turned psychotic actor helps his sister,
his cancer patient sister
become the next Taylor Swift.
Right. That was his description. What he didn't say was that this dude, mild spoilers for like the first 20 minutes of this show, by the way, this dude who is a doctor is going to deliver this pop star's baby when he gets murdered right before. And then he is reincarnate as this pop star's baby. So he's like a huge fan of this chick. And then he's like her son now, and he's a baby, but he still has all of his like thoughts and memories from when he was an adult doctor. It is wild. It's weird.
That is usually how reincarnation works in anime.
Weird. I don't even it's not even the reincarnation stuff that like, because I know that's like just a bunch of honky, like,
right.
Like, and so it's kind of like I can suspend my disbelief to say, sure, whatever. But it was just like, what on earth am I watching? Yeah,
Oshinoko, that's
more
what
thoughts.
on earth.
More thoughts to follow. Yeah. So we went to the store yesterday, and I'm
gonna let you go first.
Yeah, I don't have as much stuff because I'm on a budget this week.
Hey, I was on a budget too.
Yeah, well, you got a trade-in credit.
That's
too.
true. I did have a bunch of stuff to take and trade in.
Got like over $100 of trade-in credit, which is awesome. Yeah. So we bought a couple things. Also, coming up later, the Encroaching Digital Age. What does that mean? We're talking all about physical media, why you should have it. This just kind of talking about the streaming age in general and like how did we get here? What are the ramifications for the future that we're not thinking about right now? And so we thought it was very appropriate to be like, hey, we just bought a ton of physical media and we didn't even do this for the show. Like, this is all stuff I actually wanted.
Yeah.
Like, we planned this stuff like forever ago. So going into my my little bag of goodies right here
from the dinosaur museum, the Field Museum in Chicago.
Wow, I've never been there.
Got that bag when I was like 6.
First, let's go over. I bought a couple of vinyls. We have. I'll describe them, but if you're watching on the video, you get to see the covers and everything. So, subscribe on YouTube at the Nerdiest Podcast if you're not already. I have The King and I on vinyl, little Rodgers and Hammerstein play. I did not buy this for me. I bought this for Amy, who loves Rodgers and Hammerstein's plays. So she's like, look, if there's any Rodgers and Hammerstein. I was like, okay. And I also got Oklahoma, another Rodgers and Hammerstein. These are very, very good soundtracks. I have heard them before. I just couldn't tell you, I got them for her. I'm very glad that we get to listen to them together, and it's going to be fun. So, but the one I got for me, this is Cloud Bowling's California Suite Hubert Laws. What is that? I don't know. But
good question. That's a lot of words.
The cover reminded me of like a Disney hotel. Just the way that the font and like the California vibe.
Oh yeah.
It is jazz. I know that. And I looked it up, and it is jazz. And so I also really love buying like $2 vinyls at random used stores because you have no idea what you're going to get.
Yep.
I have like some weird random vinyls that I actually love because I just went in blind and got them. I have a couple jazz, and then I have one that's like, it's like a weird like a Danish polka record that is like actually really hilarious. But the main thing I got was movies.
Yep, of course. So we're a movie and TV show podcast, so
I got
you got a lot of movies. I didn't realize you got that many.
Stack of movies. First things first, I got Out of Towners, which is a Steve Martin, Goldie Hawn classic. It's technically a remake, but that's okay. And this is the DVD. I was looking for a Blu-ray, but I came to the conclusion that they may have never even made a Blu-ray of this movie because it's kind of niche and old. So, but I really love some of these Steve Martin movies. Also, I got Father of the Bride.
Of course, you love that movie.
I love this movie so much. I love Steve Martin. And on it, and my philosophy when searching for DVDs is usually, have I wanted to watch this recently, and did I find it? So like these are movies that are very rarely like consistently on streaming. So I'm like, I should own them. And this one was originally $15 according to the price tag, and I got it for $3 sealed in the box. So that's cool. Moving on to the Blu-rays. I got Midnight in Paris for $4 on Blu-ray. This is another good, it's a Woody Allen movie that is kind of like gone on and off of Hulu. And so I was like, let me just own it so I can watch it when I want. I got Elf on Blu-ray because it's my favorite Christmas movie, and you should own your favorite movies. So that was $4 on Blu-ray. And then I got Ferris Bueller's Day Off, still sealed in the Blu-ray for $8. Incredible. One of my favorite movies that I'm glad I own now. And then also sealed in the Blu-ray for $5, 1917, which is an incredible movie and actually pretty new. And so, and since it's still sealed, I might still get to use the digital code depending on when it was. So $5 in the Blu-ray, great movie. Why not? And then I also wanted to pick up as many Wes Anderson movies as I could find. He just won an Oscar. Congratulations. This is his first Oscar, and he wasn't there to accept it, which is a very Wes Anderson move.
Maybe he didn't think he was going to win.
I mean, me though. It's a very Wes Anderson thing to do, to just not show up. But his movies aren't like, he doesn't like cut deals with streaming services like super often. He's had movies like go on and off of HBO, but I don't have that anymore. So I was like, let me just own them. So I have Fantastic Mr. Fox on Blu-ray for $10. Very nice. And then I got The Grand Budapest Hotel on Blu-ray for $6. And then I've actually never seen this one. I got Moonrise Kingdom on Blu-ray for $7. So very, very nice. Very, very excited to see that. I've never watched it, and I'm excited because he's one of my favorite directors.
Nice.
So there you go. That's my haul. it sounds like a lot, but when you really look at it, I got 9 movies and 3 vinyls and spent $75.
Yeah.
And I came in under like budget. So,
McKay's is the kind of store where you really have to...
You have to go in saying, this is the max amount of money I'm going to spend.
That, but also you have to be willing to do the research and see if you're actually getting a good deal.
Yeah.
Like there was a handful of stuff that I looked at it while I was there, and then I immediately went to Amazon to see like, okay, is this a deal or is this like upcharge or is it the same?
Is this a deal or is this a steal?
Because if it's the same price as retail, then I'm gonna go get the new one.
Right.
Like if I'm not saving money, I'm gonna get the new one. So
that's how I feel about Plato's Closet. Listen, Plato's Closet has some good stuff every once in a while, but you still get like, you know, a t-shirt that's from Target and it's still like $12.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this isn't thrifting. I got this amazing Star Wars Chewbacca shirt at Goodwill, $3. All right? That's all I'm saying. Plato's Closet is not thrifting. Anyway.
So I actually didn't just buy movies. I got some manga here because, and I was really worried about stock because it's behind me. I don't really have a good way to lean, but all my Hero Academia volumes are back there, and these 5 are the only ones I'm missing to have a full set. So I'm going to go backwards. Volume 25, Volume 22, Volume 12, Volume 8, and Volume 5. So now I own the entirety of the My Hero Academia manga that is officially available in the US. So I'm caught up now, so I just have to buy the new volume whenever it comes out. Speaking of My Hero Academia, I went and got season 1 and 2 on Blu-ray. I think this one was $37. I already went and took all my price tags off because I don't like leaving them on. And I also got season 3 and 4. So for like $78, I got the first 4 seasons on Blu-ray. So now I'm waiting for... I see you taking your stickers off.
Yeah. I was like, you're right.
So now I'm waiting for them to do a box set for season 4 or 5 and 6 will be the next one that I get whenever that comes out. So then I'll be caught up on that. Now I can get into the Blu-rays that I bought, because I did buy a handful of Blu-rays. I spent about $100 more than Jackson, but I also had, as he said, the trade-in credit. So I got Avengers Endgame because I didn't have it before.
Which was hilariously like $5.
Yeah, this was like $5, and it's just a Blu-ray, but I'm okay with that. I also got another movie I didn't have, Avengers Age of Ultron. I'll be honest, I really like this movie.
Overhated.
Overhated movie.
Not the best, but not as bad as people think it is.
It's still really good. And then continuing the trend, I got The Avengers, just so like now I have all 4 Avengers movies on DVD. I also got cult classic Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Banger.
This movie is so good. Like, it is genuinely one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And now I have it. Netflix can't take it away whenever they feel like it. I also got Princess and the Frog, one of my favorite. I think this was in my top 5 Disney movies of all time. And I mainly bought Disney... Like, I buy Disney Blu-rays so that I don't have to have an excuse to get Disney Plus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When I'm like, oh, I'm just really feeling like rewatching Princess and the Frog. Okay, go to my Blu-ray shelf. Ba-boom. Whoa, there's a Disney Movie Rewards code in here.
Yo, you could get so much cool stuff. Look at that bike.
Dude, I want to...
You should get the Disney bike.
I want a Disney Princess bike.
I never did any of the Disney Rewards stuff.
I like how people called this the best Disney movie since The Lion King.
Who said that?
St. Brian, NBC TV, Seattle.
All right.
I also got a recent movie that I watched and honestly got to have on Blu-ray, Megamind.
Megamind is peak.
I had never seen Megamind before last weekend, and it was just so good. Like, even though I knew what was going to happen the whole time, it was still, like, freaking hilarious. I love that movie.
Too good.
I got This one's a little weird. So I got Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3 because it was either buying 1, 2, and 3 together for $30 or buying 2 and 3 separately for like $7 and just testing my luck next time I go back to get the first one. So
that's a good word.
Now, I also got the Iron Man 3 movie collection for $15. So I got 3 movies, $15. This is
all
crazy.
On Blu-ray.
I love the Iron Man trilogy. Listen, Iron Man 2 and 3 are great when Twitter isn't telling you they're bad. 2
has some good moments.
2 is great. 3 is also great. Everyone's like, it's a character assassination on Iron Man. Yeah, okay. Tell me you didn't watch the Avengers without telling me you didn't watch the Avengers. And then I have one more, but before I talk about it, because I'm going to kind of use it to transition into the next topic. Do you have anything else?
I am good. I'm just taking some stickers off these DVDs.
All right, sick. So this one, if you would have told me like 6 months ago that I would have bought this, I would have laughed at you and said, no way, it's not worth it. But for a whopping $26, sealed, by the way, brand new, I bought Ruby Volume 1 through 5 on Blu-ray. Now, I say that because if you've been with the show, like, you know my complex feelings on this show. I think it was good and then wasn't good and like a whole shebang. But also, Ruby is the reason this podcast exists in the first place, because that's why Colin and I did the first episodes, was to talk about Ruby. But also, recently announced, very sad, Warner Bros. In typical Warner Bros. Fashion, is shutting down Rooster Teeth after 21 years, which, if you don't know, Rooster Teeth is the people who did Ruby, Red vs. Blue, Genlock. They were kind of like the first ones to really pioneer the entirely digital media space and make it profitable. And it sucks to see Warner Bros. Like just say, well, adios. We're cutting down. They're also trying to sell off those 3 properties that I mentioned, Ruby, Red vs. Blue, and Genlock. And there's kind of like a group of people who think it should go, Ruby specifically should go somewhere like A24, since they recently did Has-Been Hotel and like picked that up and, you know, kind of took that indie series. Or it should go to like an actual indie studio to kind of like go from one indie studio to another one to kind of uplift and bring them into,
like, don't sell it to Disney type,
like don't give it to Amazon, but you know, give it to a smaller studio who needs that pick me up. But that is why I bought Ruby on Blu-ray, because as much as I have mixed feelings about the show, I will be darned if I don't have some way to watch this 10 years down the road, because it is an entirely digital show. Like, it was very rare for them to do the Blu-rays in the first place. And also it was a steal to get all 5 volumes together for that. But also I would also be darned if my kids like wanted to know, what's the show Ruby that like you did the first episode of this podcast on? Ba-boom.
Well, here it is.
I got it right here for you.
Well, Warner Brothers erased it forever. So.
Yeah, Warner Bros. Needed a tax break, so they just cut every single episode from the streaming platforms. Which, you know, they're not against doing.
No, clearly.
So I think I am going to do like a full rewatch. Just because it's been so long since I've seen the first volume. Like, I watched it back in 2018, 19? Yeah. Because I binge watched it to catch up for the new season, and that's what we talked about. So that's
sad.
My entire haul.
Nice.
Ruby was the last thing, but also that sad note about Rooster Teeth. I think Ruby is a good show with. Okay, well, I won't say that. Ruby is a mediocre show with really great concepts and really great potential. It has a lot of good ideas that are just not being executed very well. And I'm not going to pull the card of like, well, it's not what the original creator wanted. Like, we don't know that. Only the people closest to him would have known that. Yeah. And as a fan, like, I'm not going to say, well, I know exactly what the creator wanted. I don't know. But objectively, I can tell you that it has taken a decline
right
since he passed away.
So, yeah. Speaking of, I'm gonna let you hit our next news point because we have one or two news points.
Yeah. Speaking of passing away, unfortunately,
very sad.
Akira Toriyama, the legendary creator of Dragon Ball, Dragon Quest, Chrono Trigger, a couple other things, passed away last week, I think. And it's like, obviously when anyone passes away, that is sad and tragic. But this one kind of hit a little different because, one, I'm realizing that I'm getting old enough to see significant celebrities and creators
that you have actually influenced you,
right? Like, pass away. Like,
right.
I as I was thinking about it, I was like, Dragon Ball 1 was the first anime I ever watched.
Right.
Like, I got into it with my uncle. He got me to watch Dragon Ball Z, and like, Dragon Ball is what got me into My Hero, which is now my favorite show,
right?
Or like my favorite anime of all time. And like, in my own personal writing, just different storytelling aspects and even like the power system of Dragon Ball really influenced my writing and the way I get into that. So like, it hit me, but also like Dragon Ball, and this is one thing, like, a lot of people on Twitter were really weird of being like, don't act like Toriyama created manga. And I'm like, I'm not saying he did, but without Dragon Ball, a lot of your favorite shows and manga probably wouldn't be where they're at now. Anime would be nowhere near as popular in the West without Dragon Ball, because that was the show that like really got big in the US and opened the door for us to even have anime in the first place. And like a ton of other, like even Horikoshi, who writes My Hero, has been very open about how much Dragon Ball influenced him writing My Hero. Like he said, All Might is based on how Goku makes people feel safe when he shows up. Like, okay, Goku's here, it's gonna be good. Like, My Hero wouldn't have that aspect without Dragon Ball. So like, it is a really big, it's a big deal. Yeah. And it's like, it's really sad because he was only 68, so like, he wasn't that old. And I think they said he passed away from they used a really big word, and then someone summarized it. It was essentially a head injury that then caused like internal bleeding in the brain. Like, it was something super sudden. It wasn't like cancer or anything. Right. So it is really unfortunate. And Dragon Ball is not my favorite show. Like, I never finished Dragon Ball Z. I never finished Super, but I can't not acknowledge how important Dragon Ball has been. 'Cause like, even if it's not your favorite, you still kind of have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of how influential this series is. Like, after he passed away and that announcement came out, China, Japan, Argentina, like all these countries were making public, hey, this is so sad. Like, let's acknowledge that. Like, public statements. Like, how impactful do you have to be to get
like literal countries? Yeah.
To acknowledge your death. Like, that's insane. And like, Dragon Ball is wildly popular in Mexico. Like, Goku is like a hero to those people. And it's so like, it's just crazy how much one person making one series could radically impact the world for better.
And that's so interesting as a creator too, to think about that, of like, you know, it's so easy to be like, oh, the algorithm and the this and that, and, you know, I don't have enough subscribers, I don't have enough followers, my TikToks aren't doing well, and this and that. And it's like, you know, you need to think of the bigger picture of like, who are you impacting?
Right.
You know, what's your legacy? And just think about your art and think about your footprint, not just your digital footprint, but like your imprint in the world of like, you know, what are you creating and how is that affecting people, and is it a good thing? And, you know, if it's not, do you need to pivot and do you need to consider that? So yeah, rest in peace. That's really sad. But I feel like everyone's been handling it appropriately. Giving him the. I feel like a lot of most people are handling appropriately.
Most people are handling it appropriately, and then there's always those people who ruin it for everyone else by not handling it appropriately.
You want to share my computer?
No, I can just use mine.
Okay, cool.
Just put my computer on my lap. It's fine.
Yeah. So before we get into our main topic, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's episode. Oh my gosh, they're sponsored? This is crazy. Don't worry, the sponsor is us. This episode is sponsored by the Nerdiest podcast. If you don't know, this is an independent production. We do everything here. We record, we script, we edit, we do everything. We build our own notes, like all this stuff. So make sure that you're following on Instagram at the Nerdiest Podcast and subscribe on YouTube at the Nerdiest Podcast. We're very close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed over there, we're doing full video episodes you can watch there. Or if that's just not enough for you and you're really just foaming at the mouth for more Nerdiest Podcast content, you can join our Spotify subscriptions and get access to the Nerdiest Aftershow, which is an exclusive show that we have about 7 or so episodes of now. And they come out monthly, and it's just a special little peek behind the curtain of what's coming up and special topics and just a fun time for us to connect with you. And it's very cheap, and it supports the show. Also, keep an eye out on Instagram, because we will have new merch dropping very, very soon. I know we've been teasing this for a while, but we've been working very hard behind the scenes for all this stuff. So keep an eye out. TheNerdiestPodcast.com. We have a ton of stuff there already. You can get shirts and hats and mugs and stickers and all this stuff. So TheNerdiestPodcast.com. Go get your merch there. And keep an eye on Instagram, because we have new stuff coming very, very soon. Now, this is the part that you've been waiting for. Listen, the encroaching digital age is here. We're here.
It's not encroaching.
It's not encroaching anymore. It's here. Everything is online. Everything is and that. You can't, there's some stores you have to have your phone to pay.
Ooh, I hate that.
you think about Disney World and how hard it would be to
use cash.
How hard it would be to, not only that, but like how hard it would be to do anything at Disney without your phone. And like you have to have the app and you have to do all this stuff. And so like I think the best way I've heard it put is we will regret optimizing the world for technology the same way that we kind of regret optimizing the world for cars. So everyone's like, so we have all these cars and like roads and highways, and now everyone's just depressed and says, oh, we want walkable communities. And it's like, oh, who could have seen this coming? It's almost like when you completely isolate yourself, you get sad.
Yeah.
And now we're here in a world where everything is on your computer, everything's on your phone, and we're back there again. And we're like, oh my gosh, everyone's sad. And it's like, well, no, duh. Like, it's almost like online interaction isn't the same thing as human interaction. Who is going to tell me?
No freaking
Who is going to tell me?
Are you for real?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it real. So, big companies, big media companies, big media conglomerates, if you will.
Big movie.
Big movie. That's how we will be referring to them, as big movie.
It's like big pharma.
It's like big movie. So Big Movie has been on a bit of a rampage recently, and the streaming age is kind of a dark time to be alive right now.
You say that like we're living in World War II or something.
Right.
Like,
but like our everyday lives are being affected. We just don't realize it.
No, you're right. It is a slow. I mean, that's why this episode is called The Encroaching Digital Age.
Right.
Because it's kind of hit a peak. And there's still further for it to go, but we've plateaued for now.
Right.
And it's kind of like slowly, incrementally continuing on.
Right.
Which is kind of what we're talking about. But like, we'll get into the history of physical stuff first. But like right now, we're at a plateau. Like we have streaming, we have kind of like streaming and physical. Obviously, we just bought a ton of physical stuff.
Right. But physical's phasing out.
Yes.
Like
you kind of
Disney-
have to go to stores like McKay's.
Right.
To get
used stuff.
Yeah, and it's not new.
Well, also like I had a thought.
I know it's really rare for you.
I'm sorry. That's rare for me. So, you have the physical stuff, and then, this is what I was going to say, Disney's they were like, yeah, we're ceasing all production of physical media, a while ago. And everyone's like, oh, that's weird. And then they were like,
just kidding.
JK, have WandaVision and Loki on Blu-ray. And everyone was like, what the heck? And then they're like, JK, we're going to let Sony do all our physical media. And it's just like,
make up your mind.
What's happening? You're messing with my emotions. So... I figured we'd give just a little history of at-home video and kind of how we got here now. And so I found this article from theaterseatstore.com, and if you go to, and it's called Movie Formats Over Time. So if you go to theaterseatstore.com, movie formats over time, this is the source for that. So first things first. In 1971, you had the Sony U-matic film, which was the first technology for home video. And then from 1971 to 1975 is when the Sony Betamax cassettes hit the market. Now, a year later in 76, Universal Studios and Disney then attempted to sue Sony and said, this is illegal. You can't play movies in your homes. They have to go to the theater, which is so funny, but not funny haha.
Funny weird.
Because if you think this was 50 years ago, 48 years ago, and they're saying we only can go to theaters. We can't go to people's homes. And now it's just the complete opposite. It's just we are only going to be at home. We can't go to theaters. So yeah, that was in 1976. Eventually they, of course they figured it out because they saw the potential, they saw the potential of it. So Sony's Betamax was a combination of television set and a video cassette recorder, or a VCR. And it was the first equipment for at-home use, but it was not super popular as they usually cost around $2,000 in 1976. $2,000.
Wait, $2,000 in 1976 money?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me pull up an inflation calculator.
A little calculator. And to put this even more into perspective, the first 3 feature-length films that were released on Betamax were The Sound of Music, Patton, and MASH. All sold for $50 to $75 each. So if you wanted The Sound of Music on Betamax, you would have to have the $2,000 machine, but also the $75 tape with it. So this was a luxury. This was there was no pop in the DVD like everyone has a DVD player. What's the conversion rate on that?
So $2,000 of buying power in 1976 converts to $10,900 in 2024.
Can you imagine if Sony tried to release a DVD player now that cost $11,000? They'd get laughed at.
That is so wild. We barely want to pay $500 for game consoles.
Right. We don't want to pay $10 a month for streaming.
Yeah, we're not paying
$11K just to so that I can spend, $75 on an actual tape. So
wait, so it was $2,000
plus the $75 for a tape. Also, The Sound of Music is a long movie.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that's worth
that's why that would be worth $75.
So the player was $11,000.
Yeah.
And the tape would have been $410.
$400 tape. That's bonkers.
Too much.
So this started the video war between VHS and Betamax, where the JVC launched the VidStar VCR in Japan. So that kind of battled for a while until 1978, which is when the Laserdisc was invented. If you've never seen a Laserdisc, it's the size of a vinyl record, but it's shiny like a CD. One time I got to watch The Empire Strikes Back on Laserdisc, and it was phenomenal. It's an incredible experience. So it was the first instance of using optical discs for media and data storage, leading to higher quality of video and audio than VHS was able to offer by using NTSC/PAL recording or encoding. So, although these discs did offer many benefits over VHS, their popularity was stunted due partially to the high cost of purchasing the required player and discs. Additionally, laserdiscs could only playback media and only held about an hour's worth of video content on each side. So similar to a record, your movie is going to stop halfway through, and then you will have to go and flip the disc and watch the second half of the movie. So that was in 1978. We go to the 1980s. We go to the late 1980s where video 8 cassettes were created, and we started doing like high 8 and digital 8 and video 8. And this was very appealing to people that wanted to edit their own videos. So this was very like you could record your home movies and that kind of thing. So that turned into... So that was in the late 80s, and then you go into 1996, which became DV video, which was the ideal format for editing videos, only to be undercut 1 year later in 1997 when we released the DVD, the ones that we still use now. Okay.
I didn't buy any DVDs. I think DVDs are inferior.
This is what I bought. I bought one of these yesterday. We're still using them. Benefits of a DVD was it could hold up to about 4.7 gigabytes of data and 2 to 3 hours of standard video, making most movies a one-disc affair. Where other movies that were longer, you had to have this big old thing with the Laserdisc where you'd have 2 discs, and it was just became a whole thing. And this was great in 1997 until 2001, when we invented a little thing that all video creators should know about, the MP4, which is a wonderful file format, and it was backed heavily from Apple from the beginning and leading to an immediate credible sponsorship, skyrocketing MP4 in popularity. So 4 years later, we go to iTunes, also backed by Apple because it's Apple's.
Right.
And this was the first time that we said, hey, you don't even need a physical version. You can just buy it off the iTunes store and watch it on your phone or like your iPad or your MacBook.
So here's where the digital age starts.
This is where the digital age starts. We had no idea what we were doing. We did not realize the impact.
We opened that can of worms, not realizing how bad it was going to get.
2005. So,
which was only 19 years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
That's how quickly this has progressed.
Right. Well, you even look at the things like, it was like 70s we did this, 80s we did this, 90s we did this, 2005, 2006, 2007. Like, this is when it just ramped up like nobody's business.
Yep.
And so to compete with it, Toshiba created the HD DVD in 2006, which was higher quality than DVDs, but almost immediately stopped production because in 2006 we got Blu-rays. Now, Blu-ray is an improvement over DVDs. Blu-ray has a much higher storage volume of 25 gigabytes and 50 for double-layered Blu-ray discs. This works out approximately to 20 hours of standard video or 4.5 hours of HD video, and Blu-ray supports 1080p resolution and is widely considered to be one of the best high-definition formats and compresses MPEG-2, AVC, MPEG-4, and VC1 formats. Now, that's a lot of jargon. That's essentially what we export in today still.
Yep. Like,
that's what we're doing now. And this doesn't have 4K Blu-rays on here, but eventually we got to the 4K,
we kind of had
cheese. Reel it back a little bit, though, because the iTunes store started in 2005, but in 2007, a little company got off the ground called Netflix. And Netflix was, you know the story from there.
Winner of the best overall streaming service at the Nerdiest Awards.
Which is crazy.
2024.
So, 20 freaking years later, Netflix wins best streaming service at the Nerdiest Awards.
Good for you guys. It only took you 20 years.
I know, right? So,
jeez.
Netflix offered a solution saying you don't need to go to Blockbuster anymore. You can, order your DVDs in the mail or check from our digital library. And that is the history of physical media. And we've essentially, since then, just repeated the Netflix process over 800 times. Created the streaming wars, which started around 2019 or so when Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney Plus was the kicker for that.
Disney Plus came out, and all the other companies were like, oh, we can create our own streaming services.
No,
and they're like, this is fine. We can create our own. We don't have to play by Netflix's rules. And so they did that. And then we had a little thing called a pandemic.
Oof.
And we all decided, oh, streaming is so convenient. I don't have to go out and buy DVDs or this and that. We can just, stream everything. And companies took that and ran and said, cool, let's not even put things in theaters anymore.
Yeah.
Let's just go to... I feel like we've been saying the movie theaters are so back for 3 years.
Did you see... there was a tweet I read yesterday or the day before that was essentially 66% of Americans would rather watch on streaming than go to the theater.
Which is bizarre.
Or it was like 2/3 or something of the...
Right. Of equivalent...
polling group.
Right.
Would rather watch it on streaming. And I'm like, oof, I don't think theaters are coming back from this one.
Yeah. So, here we are. They killed Blockbuster. Redbox is still a thing.
But nobody goes to Redbox. Come on.
But not a lot of people are using it. And even Redbox has their own streaming thing now.
Did they really?
Yeah. Like
What the heck's the point of that? If
I'm
going to rent
know,
something,
dude.
I'm going to do it through Amazon.
They're trying, man. So, here we are. And now the streaming services all like branched out, and now they're like slowly consolidating again, and we're getting into a really, really like murky waters. And it was like last year, 2 years ago, when HBO purged like 30% of their library.
They just got rid of like half their content,
and we're just like, we don't want to pay for this, so
for funsies, not even like
Nito Delito. See you later, toodles.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wait, people worked really hard to create that stuff. Like, why are you deleting it? Oh, we need the tax break. Wait.
Why is there a tax break for that? Can we...
Why?
Like, wait. Let's go back and ask that question. Why is there a tax break for deleting content off your streaming service?
Because you don't have to pay to renew the license.
But it's your content.
What? It's not, because they're all removing the...
They're removing like Looney Tunes. Dude, Warner Bros. Owns Looney Tunes. What the heck?
Well, they don't want to pay the people that actually worked on the real stuff. And hence everyone was on strike last year. And, here we are now, like post-strike. And I feel like we like kind of got stuff done. But also like...
We reached a peaceable agreement.
That
everyone was happy with until they won't be in like 5 years.
Right. I feel like no one was really truly happy with it, though. They kind of like both begrudgingly like met in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, okay. So Netflix killed Blockbuster, and here we are, Netflix ironically making a crappy sitcom called
about
Blockbuster, which is just rude.
Actually okay.
It's just rude.
Yeah, they wanted the headline Netflix kills Blockbuster again.
Yeah. So, anyway,
So
now we're here with the potential of an all digital future. And I don't think that movie theaters will ever disappear forever, because even if you go to the movie theater on a Friday night, like even in my little small town, there's a lot of people there.
Right, but I don't think movie theaters will close. I think their numbers will be reduced drastically.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there will be one theater per big city.
And unless you And unless they drop the movie theater prices, it's not going to get better. But they also can't afford to drop the prices because their numbers are lower.
Right.
So it's like, what's the plan here? So like, here we are on our next point is why an all digital future is dangerous.
Yes. It is
Here
not
we are.
great.
This is not a good idea.
So let's take a second to. So one point, I'm not going to harp on too much, but one like key phrase that every time someone brings up like, oh, I want an all digital PS5 or an all digital Xbox or even an all digital like whatever Nintendo's next thing is, or I buy all my movies digitally, or I buy all my manga digitally, or I only listen to music on Spotify. And when I think about that, there's this one key phrase that I've heard, and it's you will own nothing and you will be happy, which comes from the World Economic Forum. They got all kinds of weird stuff going on. That's not what we're here to talk about. But what I want to talk about is the idea of that phrase of you will own nothing and be happy. Because when you're buying a digital movie, digital game, digital whatever, you don't truly own it. Because as we've seen, Sony, I think it was either in December or January, they went through and just started cutting people's accounts. And with those accounts, their digital games and digital movies and shows that they had bought on PlayStation were just gone. No compensation, no nothing offered. Then later, I think it was in February, Crunchyroll announced that they were fully merging with Funimation because they had bought them out a couple of years ago. They were fully merging and getting rid of the digital library because on Funimation you could buy full seasons, you could buy movies, and like it was kind of like really cool actually because you could own all of My Hero season 1 digitally, and like it was yours, and even if they took it off the platform, you still had it. So when they announced that they were fully merging, they were getting rid of all of your digital content. So like I have the first 2 My Hero movies and the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie on Funimation digitally because when I bought the physical, it came with a digital code. So I'm not like super upset about it. I'm more upset about the principle of it than anything else because I have the physical DVDs and that's how I've been watching them anyway. But it's the fact that they're ripping those because there are people who have much larger digital libraries than I do. And Funimation is offering no compensation, no like, here's how we're going to translate it over to Crunchyroll. Like we're going to have a whole different page for you. Nothing. So that digital stuff is gone.
Well, even thinking about the PlayStation thing, like consider how much PlayStation games are.
Right. Like that's a $70 game.
Like if you had a full library of PlayStation games, you're talking about hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Especially if you've been like a lifelong
supporter,
collector.
Right.
And I even think about this. I got in a debate about this with my coworkers over like Steam.
Yeah.
Like Steam is an all digital platform. What happens if Steam gets shut down?
Right.
All those games are gone.
Yeah.
Now, it's a little different because with PC, you can like physically download them to your computer and on a separate drive. And like that's not as intense. But it's still this concept of an all digital marketplace, and that when you buy something digital, you don't truly own it. And I think we've gotten caught up in the convenience of having digital copies and not having a physical thing. Like this copy of Ruby, if Warner Bros. Wants this back, they got to come take it.
Right.
It's not just as simple as like,
they can't just self-destruct.
We're taking it all off Crunchyroll with no explanation. That's another thing I don't like digital is because like we've seen shows get pulled off Netflix, like Community. Community's getting pulled off Netflix, The Office, Parks and Rec, like all these big shows. Friends was on Netflix and then it got put on HBO. And like all these things are just disappearing, and that's not good for media preservation, but also we as a society, this is like the and you will be happy part is we're just eating it up, man.
Right.
We're actively like, yeah, I want my all digital PS5 because I don't want to have to get up and inconvenience myself for 30 seconds to get up and swap the disc. Like that I know people who have fully digital Switch collections who say they do it because they don't want to get up and change the cartridge.
Mm-hmm. No,
and
me
I'm
too.
like, your Switch sits on your desk right here.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't want to get up and switch the cartridge? It's right here. So, like, we've gotten so caught up in this idea. Yeah, we're lazy. We have really low retention span because of, like, TikTok and stuff. And we just have gotten sucked into the convenience. So we are gladly taking in large amounts, like, yeah, just make it all digital because that's more convenient. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm even trying to think about, like, the landscape of YouTube in the sense of, like, YouTube used to be the accessible platform. It used to be where, like, you would go for, like, indie projects, and that's where you could make it big. And it's, in a way, it still kind of is, and we've had a couple breakout indie projects on YouTube recently. But I feel like now we have made just everything so accessible that if you see a YouTube video that is, like, slightly below the standard quality, then you don't want to see it. And so, like, we've gotten really spoiled just because of the accessibility of high quality content that we get pissed when not everyone can keep up with it, when YouTube is the independent platform.
Yeah. Even though they're owned by Google, it's still...
Right. It's where you go, like, anyone can do anything on YouTube unless you say a bad word, and then you are out of there.
Yeah, unless you make a slightly inappropriate joke and then your ad revenue gets cut and your account is banned.
Yes. So, yeah, Best Buy and Target is doing this now too, and it's really so sad. They're removing all their DVD and Blu-rays. And I imagine it's because they're just not selling. And it's just kind of like, you know, if you go into a Target now, their DVD section is tiny.
You're lucky if it's one shelf.
Right.
Like, some stores are like my store has the kind of like roundabout floating island thing. But, like, we went to a Target yesterday that was just one side.
Yep.
And that side was empty.
I think the one at my house, the one at home is one shelf. It's like one, like, long shelf, but it's never stocked. It's always like 2 or 3 like really, like, bizarre, like, animated movies that I didn't want to see, and then, like, maybe an end cap with some it's like random, like, Disney movies.
Right.
With, like, their new, like, poorly redesigned covers that I'm just like
Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, like the ones that they know are going to sell. But even then, here's another thing is I think as kind of going back to the attention span thing is when we were kids, it was we're going to put a movie on, we're going to put a DVD in the player and press play. And you were a captive audience. Yep. You would sit there and you would watch the movie
so special
from start to finish. And, like, when it was over, I remember I was like, this is kind of funny. I've always been super careful with my DVDs.
Same, because that's what I was taught. I was told to be careful with it.
Grab the DVDs by the edge. Jail. Jail.
Straight to jail.
So I would always, like, pick them up very carefully. Right, you put them in the thing. Like,
and then you, like...
So... And when it was over, like, you eject it, put a new one in, wait for it to come up. We had, like, really cool DVD menus.
Right,
and,
dude.
Like,
the lost art of DVD menus.
Yes. You'd watch all of the previews and, like, the whole thing. And now kids have such a short attention span because we have a bunch of freaking iPad babies that they lose interest in the 30 seconds it takes you to put the DVD in the player.
Right. They're like, oh, I don't want to get up.
Because they're so used to Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, where you tap it, press play, and it's on.
Right. Or even like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram.
Right. You just start scrolling, and there's always something there. And I think that is also why DVDs aren't selling, is because kids don't want to sit and watch them. And the only people now who can really afford to maintain a physical collection are people like us, who this is what we're passionate about. This is. I also, like, I want to do a movie night with my small group and like we're going to watch Star Wars or something.
Right.
But none of us have Disney Plus. So
right.
I'm going to pull my Star Wars Blu-rays off the shelf and we're going to pop them in a DVD player.
See?
Like,
see? I just
that's
smash this microphone.
That's
Listen.
why like having physicals are so important, because if you don't have that, well, now you're paid out, like you're locked out of content.
Well, I also think like just thinking about like the way that media was when I was a kid versus even like my younger siblings now, I feel like there's such a culture of decision paralysis right now because we just have the world at our fingertips. And so like, if I don't know what I want to watch, but I'm like, maybe I'm in the mood for this, I have to scroll. Like I have to go to Hulu and flip through all their shows and I can't decide. Okay, nothing looks good here. Let me go to Netflix. Da, 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 da. Okay, nothing looks good here. Let's go to Peacock. Da, 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 da. Okay, nothing looks good here. Let's go to Paramount Plus. Da, 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 da. Which, by the way, now we're paying enough streaming services that you could afford cable at this point.
Yep.
But I don't want to be the back in my day guy, but back in my day, if you wanted to watch TV, you would get up and walk over to the shelf. And what you had on that shelf was what you could watch.
That's what you had access to.
That's what you had access
on
to.
The DVD shelf.
So it was like I could physically like connect in my brain like what was physically right here. All the VeggieTales were down here. All the Disney was right here. All the Ninjago DVDs were right here. I had the Full House full collection right there. And it was just like, okay, in front of me. Because like when you're 8 years old and you're looking at this screen with 10 million options, you have no idea what's appropriate. You have no idea what you're allowed to watch. That's why parents should have physical media for their children, because you have no idea what they're watching on YouTube. Right. You have no idea what they're watching on Netflix or Hulu. You don't have the time to vet every single thing that they watch.
Exactly.
But if you just have this shelf and say you can pick anything from this shelf, it's so much more carefree. They learn the responsibility of choosing like what you watch matters. And it's very much like you have to take care of this DVD or else you can't watch it again.
Right. That was something I was going to bring up. Is like, if you don't take care of your DVD, this is something I learned
this the hard way.
It was a principle I was raised on. Is I took care of the stuff I had.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if we could afford a new DVD,
right,
we're not going to buy it.
Right,
because you need to take care of the one you have.
Right.
Like my mom was very adamant, if you break it, I'm not buying you a new one.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Whoa.
So I took care of my DVDs.
Right.
I was very like, I'm going to make sure they don't get scratched or smudged.
Right.
They go back in the case, back on the shelf. Like,
and there's a couple of them that I did scrape up, and it was tragic. And you were like, I cannot believe I did this. I can never watch this again.
Right.
And there's just, I don't know. I feel like we're not, like, because I'm a movie lover. I love movies, and I want to watch movies and TV shows with my children one day. And it's going to be really, really hard to, like, make that connection. I don't feel like I want to know what the next generation of movie lovers is going to be like, because I don't want this to be something that dies out. But this, will there be an appreciation for this in the same way that other people have now? Because there's no responsibility for it.
Right.
And there's no, like,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want, that sounds maybe a little doomsy, but, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a conversation that we haven't really brought up, is like, how does streaming affect our children? And like, what are they growing up with?
Turns them into iPad babies.
It's too convenient, and there's too many decisions, and it's just scaring them.
It's scaring them. It's also overwhelming them at such a young age. Like, as a kid, you shouldn't have to be presented with a bajillion different options. That's actually like a scientifically proven theory, or it's either a theory or it's something psychological, where they do this in the grocery store too.
Yep.
That's why there's 30 different options of ketchup. Mm-hmm. Because if you're overwhelmed with choice, you'll eventually just pick something.
Right.
Even if it's not the best thing, even if it's like the worst thing on the shelf, you'll just pick something because you have decision paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing the same thing with streaming where it's like, here's the entire Disney catalog at your disposal.
Right.
Instead of saying, hey, here's
10 of your favorite
movies. Here's 10
movies.
Blu-rays. Pick one.
Right.
And like they're all different. It's not like we're giving you 10 of the same thing.
Right.
And I think that is something that we're not taking into consideration.
Right.
This may sound really doomy and conspiracy theory, but it's intentional.
Oh,
it's 100% intentional to overwhelm you and stress you out, and just
I just want to watch something.
You're overwhelmed.
It's time to go back to Love Is Blind
with a medium that is like media is supposed to be a relaxing, like let's sit down and watch a movie. Let's sit down and watch some TV. It's not supposed to be this really large, stressful
ordeal.
Like even cable. When you had a bajillion different cable channels, they were all doing something different. There was a sports channel, weather channel, news channel, TV, like ABC,
right,
like NBC. Like they were all doing something different based on what you wanted. Whereas now we're like, here's 30 different anime.
Well, the
30
thing is,
different Disney movies.
Well, even on the cable conversation, like if I know, like if I'm on Hulu and I'm like, sure, I want to watch a food show. Okay, choose from the 2 million food shows here.
Not just let me switch to the Food Network and see what's on.
Let's see what's on Food Network. Oh, I've seen this episode of Beat Bobby Flay. What's on HGTV? Yeah. Oh, this is cool. It's that easy. And it's just kind of like, and usually we've all done that. We've all been in the hotel, like flipping through channels like nothing good is on.
It's because it's a hotel TV.
Yeah. So, but it's like, I don't know. And this is my process, and I hope this is useful to someone out there because I am someone that gets decision paralysis. This is my process. You have no idea what you want to watch. Okay. Do you want something animated or do you want something live action? Me and Amy do this all the time. She says, do you want something animated or live action? Say, okay, animated. Okay. What streaming service do you want to look on? Peacock. Okay. The first movie that catches your eye, write it down. Say, okay, this is option 1. Scroll for a little bit. The next one that catches your eye, don't think twice about it. Just say, okay, option 1 or option 2, and then you let the other person decide. Say, I chose the options. Which one do you want? And if you are by yourself, flip a coin or just decide.
Right.
Like when you switch services and you go back and forth between streaming services and you're like, maybe this, you're going to spend an hour trying to decide what you want. And then you're just going to end up choosing what the first thing you saw is anyway. So you may as well just cut out the middleman and just watch it.
Exactly.
So I hope that's helpful to someone out there. That's been my process for a long time. So why is physical media important? Why did I just buy 9 movies for $75? Well, it's mine. Like I know we've harped on this point for like years. It's mine. Bob Iger can't bust down my door and say, "Give me that copy of Princess and the Frog." Give it to me. He could.
He's not going to.
It's breaking and entering, but like he's gonna be like, "No, we remastered it for the new Splash Mountain ride. Give it to me.
4K. We made it.
Give it to me." But they you can't. Like, there's no one can delete my version of Cars 2 for a tax write-off. Like
exactly.
So I don't know. Just things to consider, and it doesn't mean you should own everything, but just like your favorite movies and shows, it wouldn't hurt to own them just in case.
Right.
Like, you're not hurting anyone by owning it.
Like, what if you have no internet?
Right.
What if you can't get to streaming?
Right.
Then what? Or what if, like, hey, I mean, we saw it this year. There was a national outage with AT&T.
Yeah.
Like, what if you have no internet, no data? What are you going to do then, huh?
Right.
You're going to plug this DVD.
You're going to plug that baby in.
And put
Here's
it in the
thing.
TV because you need something to entertain your kids.
A couple weeks ago, the Wi-Fi went out on campus. Like, it happens pretty consistently. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I bet you wish you had a freaking Blu-ray collection like me now, baby.
Bet you wish you had some physical manga right now.
Bet you had some physical media, baby. I'm watching The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent on Blu-ray, baby. And I bet you're jealous. Gonna pop that junk in the PS5. Well, yes, sir. Yeah, so it's just kind of like, don't, you should own your favorite things. I have 2 copies of Ratatouille.
I have I have like quadruple dipped on Indiana Jones because I bought all 4 of them on DVD at McKay's.
Right.
For like super cheap. And they weren't really mine. They were more like the family copies.
Right.
So when I went and wanted to get my own, I bought all 4 individually on Blu-ray.
Right.
But then I went to McKay's another time and I found a box set of all 4 for $8 on Blu-ray.
So you bought it again?
So I bought it again and I just took
and
my 4 individual Blu-rays to McKay's. That was part of what I traded in yesterday. So another thing I want to bring up, and this isn't like more of like, it's not along the preservation lines, but it is something less associated with DVDs and more associated with manga. Is I think books in general, I don't think are ever going to go fully digital because there are enough people who like flipping through the pages and going and like buying all the doing your book hauls.
I'm not a doomsday preparer that says, guys, buy every physical copy of Harry Potter right now because they're going all digital. That's not gonna happen.
I'm not worried about that. But one reason I buy manga physically is like I said, people who like flipping through the pages. I think it's more fun to like flip through the pages and look
because it's a book.
But also, something I'm trying to do in 2024 is spend less time on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Because my phone is, 1, it's not healthy to look at your phone all the time. 2, as a society, we are very much hooked on our phones 24/7. They are essentially another appendage of the human body at this point. And like the phone, the blue light's not good for your eyes. So I like to have a hobby that I can get into and do that does not require me to be on my phone. Do I turn on music on my phone while I'm reading? 100%. But I turn the music on and put the screen face down. It's also a great way for me to disconnect from Twitter, Instagram, social media, especially in, if you're a U.S. resident, it's election year. So, of course, it's going to be the most stressful time ever.
I hate the internet.
So, in a year where the internet is just increasingly volatile, it's nice to have something that I can get away from all of that. And even like with movies and stuff, like even Blu-rays, you can still get away from that because you don't have to be connected to your phone at all. Like if you watch something on Netflix and you don't have Do Not Disturb on, you can still see your Instagram and news notifications coming through. But if you're on a TV and you like, I'm going to put my phone face down and I'm not going to check my phone until the movie is over. Like I'm trying to do that and be more intentional when I watch movies of like, I'm going to put my phone down. Like when I was watching Megamind last weekend.
Right.
Because I'd never seen it. I wanted to be really intentional with my watching. So I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, put it face down, and said, I'm not touching my phone until the movie is over. And I didn't. And it was nice because it was like partially breaking that addiction of like, I'm slightly bored. I need to go scroll through Twitter because the movie is not retaining. No, I'm going to focus on the thing in front of me, one thing at a time.
You know what's so funny? When you started talking about that, I grabbed my phone as a joke and I was like, oh, yeah, we need to get off our phones. But then I legitimately got sucked in and started replying to like everything that I missed. And I was like, oh, no, they've got me.
Yeah, so there's that. And another thing is having physical media means you, like we've said, you own this version. But let's hone in on that key word. This version. This disc. Discs like this do not get updated.
Nope.
So if they go back, like there have been a handful of movies on Disney Plus that have been digitally altered to be more like sensitive. And like they've altered things digitally. If you got the disc, they're not touching that. You have the pure, original, unfiltered version.
It's so funny. There's a Taylor Swift song. And, of course, I'm the one that brings this up.
Of course.
But there's a Taylor Swift song called Picture to Burn. If you know, you know. And there's I don't remember the original line. I don't remember the new line. It's, like, altered. But if you got one of the original CDs of like her first album, the original line is never mind, I'm trying to remember the words, but literally like it's only on the original CD. She says she's like, I'll tell your friends this and that. She says, never mind, I'll tell my friends that you're gay. And like that's in the original CD, but then it was changed before it went to like streaming, but people like still have their CDs with the original lyrics on it, and it's wildly entertaining.
Dang. See? That's what I'm talking about.
See, it's funny.
You're not going to lose those things.
Also, I would also encourage like I think this is part of the conversation too, is like I'm trying to get to where I want to burn like home movies and stuff like onto discs and like print real photos and stuff, because like like I have all these photos on my phone.
What happens if something happens to your phone?
If something happens? And like, you know, my parents have 1,000 pictures and home movies and like scrapbooks from their childhood, and they have some from mine, but I'm like, you know, I'm college age, and you know, what will I have of my college years,
right,
like physically, like, or is it just kind of like going to randomly like disappear into the Instagram void of selfies that like everyone posts? So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. Shifting a little bit, I mean, think about the video game space, and like you have the history of all these video game consoles. The video games have never been digital until now. Because, you know, even the NES, you had to blow out the cartridge and then pop that junk in. Or is that the SNES?
No, it was the NES.
It was NES.
Because that was the first one.
Yeah. So, you know, and then, you know, even the Xbox One, like you could get Game Pass and like stuff like that.
Yeah, like my Xbox down there and my PlayStation 4 both have disc drives, but the new, like there's a cheaper version of the PS5 and a cheaper version of the Xbox that are all digital.
Right.
Which, by the way, I don't think the disc drive costs you that much money.
No.
I think they're just trying to financially steer us in a different direction.
I think they're just trying to control you.
Incentive.
They're trying to control you. The government is putting chemicals in the water. They're trying to control your game libraries. They're trying to steal them from you. They want to make sure you don't own a single dadgum game on your console, friends. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know the deep state conspiracy that PlayStation is actually controlling your mind. They're putting chemicals in their controllers. When you hold your controller, actually, it's seeping from out of the joysticks into your thumbs and into your bloodstream. That makes you say, all hail Sony, the almighty gods. They made Spider-Verse. That is the best movie of all time, and it was snubbed for the Oscars. That's what they're doing. They're putting it in the water. They're putting it in the controllers. They're taking all the discs, and they want to take your children and all this stuff. God bless America. Stay safe, friends. Don't buy the new PS5. Who let that crazy guy in here? Sorry, some crazy guy just ran in here. Some crazy guy just ran in here, and he just like started yelling. I think this is our most
conspiracy theory episode yet.
So bad.
We're like, hey, Sony's putting chemicals in the water, and they're making you hate physical media. Yeah. 10 years from now, you'll see that I'm actually right, even though I seem crazy.
You know, we're gonna like randomly disappear like off the internet.
Yeah, we'll disappear, and that's how you'll know.
That's how
Big
you know.
Sony got us.
If you never hear from the Nerdiest podcast again, Sony got
Guys,
us.
we did not unalive ourselves. I'm telling you that right now. We were taken out for telling the truth.
Oh man! But even thinking about steering back a little bit. Have another article from blog.lander, and this is, I'm going to just brush over this. This is the history of digital music and all of the formats. So in 1948, you have the vinyl record, which is what I bought yesterday, and that has made a comeback. Ironically enough, I recently saw a thing that said like 40-something% of record sales are from people that don't own a record player.
That checks out.
And I was just like, guys, buying records is not quirky. Like,
it is. What do you mean?
I mean,
it's the quirkiest of them all.
I will say, when we were at the store yesterday, I found a Young Gravy on vinyl, and I was like, oh, Miranda, put on the young gravy, if you will. Oh, like records are like classy and we're putting like freaking young gravy.
Records are classy, but Taylor Swift still has one.
No, that's true. See, it's funny that like, you know, in 1948 they made vinyl records and they had no idea that we would be putting young gravy on.
Who's gonna tell them?
Oh, who's gonna tell them? So in 1963 you get compact cassettes, and then you go
CCs.
1964 you have 8-track tape, which wasn't super popular.
So funny.
1972 you go to floppy disk, which was a flop.
Oh.
Anyway, so 10 years later you get compact discs in 1982, also known as the CDs, which is kind of what I grew up listening to.
I grew up with
CDs.
CDs. I was like, I feel like we were right in that sweet spot of still having CDs, but iTunes was a thing.
Right.
Like I had an iPod that had all of our music on it.
Yeah.
But it was also like my mom would go out and buy, like, thrift a bunch of CDs and then burn those CDs onto iTunes and put them on. Like, that's how I got the entire Phantom Menace, like, Star Wars soundtracks on my iPod.
Oh, yeah.
Was my mom went out, bought the DVDs, stuck them in the computer, burned them on iTunes, put them on my iPod.
That was like an event.
Yeah.
Like, if you were going on a long road trip, like, you had to burn all this stuff.
You got to
to
bulk
iPod.
up your music collection for your car ride.
Right. So,
or like, did you ever have one of those the CD holders, but it attaches to the sun visor?
Oh yeah.
We had one of those.
Yeah.
So flip down for your sun visor, but also what is it? Like the big book.
Dude.
We had one of those for DVDs too.
Dude.
So when we went on car trips, I had a little
little book, and you're like
portable DVD player, and my mom was like every night. So what's so funny? Not to side tangent, but nowadays when we go on trips, my mom would be like, all right, to my sister and be like, hey, put anything, like download your stuff now on your iPad while we have internet. When I was a kid, it was, all right, go through the movie cabinet and pick out the DVDs you want to bring with and slide them in the thing. And that was another, like, taking care of the DVDs was being very careful to slide them in the thing and not get them mixed up. And then I had this little pouch that had like 20 DVDs in it.
Some of y'all didn't grow up with the giant leather DVD book,
dude,
and it shows. Some of y'all never had the experience of going zip, zip, and then you have to flip through like 20 pages of DVDs
just to find Cars 2.
Like Cars 2. So yeah, 1982, you get compact discs, and then 10 years later, 1992, you get MP3, and then 2002, so like another 10 years later. No, sorry, another 10 years later.
Good job.
You go
double
to
checking your math.
You go to streaming, and in 2000,
streaming started in 2002 for music. Oh yeah, I guess iTunes.
So 2002.
Sorry guys, I brought the digital music with me.
And then this really skyrocketed in 2007 when the iPhone released, because you didn't even need an MP3 player anymore. You could do it straight from your phone.
That was Apple's big innovation. Was they started off like the phone. The iPhone was separate from the iPod.
Right.
And then as like the iPhone went on, eventually they were like, hey, now you can just bring these two devices together and we can have one. I don't understand why they did that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, I do, because they made the iPhone more expensive to compensate for not having an iPhone.
Right. So, you know, Spotify released in 2008.
Wow, it's that old?
Yeah. So Spotify was like, hey, we're doing streaming music, this and that. But I mean, no one was like, you know, like there weren't a ton of artists that were pushing their stuff on Spotify.
Yeah. Because it was the new hip thing. Like, nobody wanted to get on it because there wasn't money in it yet.
Right. And so it's like, and this was something we were talking about when we were building the notes of this show, is in this conversation, music isn't brought up a whole lot. When I feel like we let music go.
We handed music to the digital age.
Right.
Willingly.
And I'm so back and forth as a music lover, as a music enjoyer, back in the day, if we wanted a new album, my dad would be like, okay, give me $8.
Right.
Like if an artist I really liked, like really, really liked, had a new album, I would have to save up my money and buy it on our iTunes library. It was a big deal when new music released. And there's an old playlist that I still have on my iPod Shuffle,
Dude.
which is peak. I'm sorry.
I have an iPod Nano around here somewhere.
Dude, my mom had an iPod Nano that I stole. If I was ever mowing the lawn, I would steal it. But the only thing on there was Katy Perry's Teenage Dream. So like I was way too young to be listening to that. But it'd be like 11-year-old me, like, I want to see a peacock. It was just like, whoa. She
kid, calm down.
did not vet me on that one. But yeah, like I'm back and forth because on the other hand, I think the music industry has also shifted so much now where like every Friday there's new music.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, if there's new music every Friday and, you know, a new Peabody album comes out and I'm like, okay, am I going to spend $11 on it?
No, you're
Probably
going to listen
not.
to it on Spotify.
And so it's like, you know, there's still the iTunes store is still actually alive and well. Believe it or not, a lot of people still buy stuff on there.
Wow.
And I think the music one is so different, especially as a music creator. You know, follow Jackson Glass on Spotify. You know, I feel like because of Spotify and the digital age of music, we opened the door for so many independent artists that I'm not too mad about. Because if we stayed in the same, like, hey, if you want an album out on stores, you need a record deal. Yep. And it was like, you need to be making it big. And so in a way, you know, I feel like the difference between the movies and the music is in movies, we don't want everything on streaming because that gives all the power into huge companies. Where on the music side, we're taking the power away from the huge companies by letting the independent artists have a shot on Spotify. And so, you know, I think it's something crazy like 10,000 songs get added to Spotify a week or like something crazy like that. And I kid you not, it's something like to be in the top 10% of Spotify artists, you need like 20 monthly listeners or something like that.
That's
like,
it?
That's how hard it is. Or it's maybe 100. I think if you have 100 monthly listeners, you're in the top 10% of Spotify artists.
Wow.
And so it's like, it's definitely still not easy. It's definitely not. I think a lot of people have a misconception of like, if I put out music on Spotify, people will listen to it. And it's like, absolutely not. If your music sucks, no one's going to listen to it.
Right.
And that's just a fact. And so maybe your family will listen to it, but you're not going to make it on a playlist. And then there's an argument of like, okay, but how does so much bad music get put on big Spotify playlists? Okay, well, it's good to someone. Like,
right.
even
like
if
someone enjoys it.
Right. Someone enjoys it. Unless you are objectively bad, like bad mix, bad, like whatever, you're not going to make it. And so I'm not mad, truly. And I think, and I've always said, like, my favorite thing about podcasting is that anyone can do it, but you need to be able to put in the work to do it well.
Right.
And it's not like a gate-kept medium. That's why everyone says we should start a podcast. And it's like, okay, yes, you can start a podcast. The average lifespan of a podcast is 6 episodes.
Hey, we're on 119.
We're on 119, baby. I almost said something bad. So we
suck it.
Essentially suck it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, the music scene has changed, and I still feel partially some of that decision paralysis of like, there's so much music out there that it's just at my fingertips and I don't know what to listen to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why so many people like that Spotify builds playlists for you, because they don't have to decide for themselves.
Oh, I hate that feature.
But I don't use it.
I don't like well, you don't use Spotify because you're a loser.
Also, fun fact, I've been Apple Music for life because of our huge iTunes library.
See, that's different though. because you have a back catalog.
Right. No, here's the thing. Like, my dad built up our iTunes library from the beginning. So we have so much music that we own, on air quote, own.
Exactly.
On that. Well, some of it's burned from CDs, so it's kind of like
another thing
iffy.
About, like, the digital music stuff is, if music didn't go in the digital direction, we wouldn't be doing this podcast right now.
Right, absolutely.
Because, podcasts didn't really exist. It was just radio talk shows.
Right.
Which is basically all podcasts are, is it's like, hey, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a conversation about a topic, and people are going to listen. And it was audio only for a long time.
Right.
It was very rare. Only big people had video.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, really the only ones who had video were the talk show hosts, like your Alex Jones, Ben Shapiro,
your Ryan Seacrest type,
those were the ones who had
Joe Rogan
video because they could afford it.
Yeah.
And now that video is like, oh, hey, I just plug my camera into my computer and we're running audio on the other monitor. Like, boom, it is what it is. And like, we would have had to pitch a podcast to
a studio,
radio station,
and
like to get it on the air. And if it doesn't do well in however many episodes they gave you, okay, well, it's over.
Right.
And like, you're not doing it again.
Right.
Whereas now, like, I don't think like that we've been doing the podcast for so long, but like now we're really starting to hit our stride 100 episodes in.
Yeah. Like, dude, I've talked to people, like, I love talking to people that are starting podcasts. It's so fun because I'm just like, yes, do it. But also, Lord have mercy, if like you got to be in it.
Yeah, you got to be in it.
That's why so many, like, we've like talked about this a little bit, like in like on our own time, but very like, I feel like we used to have, when we first started, we had a huge community on Instagram of like these fellow movie podcasters that we were really into and really excited about. And they've slowly just dwindled over time. Like, shows have been like, hey, we're too busy. Like, we can't do this and that. And so now it's like us, genre geeks, and the Mind Rewind, which comes out soon, by the way.
Yeah.
Which formerly known as I'd Like a Refund. But I'm very excited about the Mind Rewind. And so, like, I know it's out there. We just haven't found it yet. So if you are a podcast and you want to be friends, the Nerdiest Podcast on Instagram, come follow us. We want to interact with you. We're just struggling because it's so really sad to see podcasts like slowly die out.
Yeah, and I know this isn't like a podcast life advice episode.
Right.
And I'll say this and then we can kind of like start to wrap up.
Yeah.
Another thing is I don't think a lot of people understand, like you said, how much work it takes to put in a podcast, but how everyone has to be on board with that work.
Yes.
And I'm going to say this as someone who has done 2 podcasts, and you can probably relate a little bit.
I've also done 2 podcasts. Yeah. And only one of them survived.
Yeah.
Which is your same situation.
It's this podcast. But everyone has to be as in it, like, together. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a podcast, the Joystick Drift podcast, when I was like, that was my unemployed project.
That was a weird
so I had
era.
Something to do.
That was a wild era for you.
It was literally a year ago.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
no, it was not.
Yeah. Our last episode of that show came out in May of last year. It hasn't even been a full year since I left.
I don't like that.
But that was my like unemployment project, and we were all really into it. But I was always the big like, hey, let's make sure we're on time. Here's our topics. Like, I was putting in all the work because I was the only one who wasn't working full time.
Right.
So then when I got a full-time job, I'm like, okay, I can't do all the planning and all the editing and all the recording for 2 shows. So I took this one because I'm like, I love this show. This is like clearly what I'm more passionate about. And then as soon as I did that, that other show fell apart.
Right.
Because like, and I've talked to him, like, we're all still good friends. We play D&D every weekend. Like, but when we talk about the podcast, like, what ended up happening is they just didn't have the time to sub in what I was doing in my free time. So like, doing a podcast is a lot of work.
It's a lot. And I think, and this is similar to what happened to me, but not as bad. It was like a bit more of some external reasons and just, like random friendship conflicts that was like way different than yours. I love that for us. But like, coffee time ended. It's whatever. We're currently working on trying to bring it back. Very, very exciting stuff. If that's kind of a deep cut. Coffee time was what a wild ride. And I think I've seen this before. Like someone said, this guy on Instagram, his name is Bacon Bits, and he works for like the music industry, and he gives incredible advice. And he said, listen, if you're part of a band, understand that like if you have like 6 people, 2 people are going to be doing like all of the work.
Yep.
He was like, that's just part of it. And they're going to just kind of like, you're all going to have different things going on, and like you're going to have one person or 2 people that just kind of steer the ship, and that's okay as long as everyone's committed.
Right.
And so like there's sometimes when school is just super busy and Nick takes on more podcast load.
But then when you're out of school, it balances out.
But then when I'm out of school,
because
like,
I get a break.
Right.
And you start stepping up. And
right.
When that's the balance, it makes sense.
Right.
Because I know you're not doing as much for a good reason.
Right.
Like I know that school is really important as someone who also went through school.
Right.
So that's kind of how the balance has to go.
Right.
Whereas like you can tell when someone's not working because they don't want to. And you're like, okay, that's like, I know you have the time.
Right.
You're just not.
That just fully goes back to what we said at the beginning. People that say they don't have the time usually watch a lot of TV.
They play a lot of video games.
A lot of video games, which are not bad things. But also,
if you've committed to something,
get off your butt.
You've committed to it. Like, you need to put in the work.
Anyway, I don't know how we got on.
Yeah,
like,
what
this
a weird
random
tangent.
I think it was good, but it was just so.
I think we should do a whole episode at some point in the future.
Just a full like Dr. Phil.
Yeah, like how to start a podcast for beginners.
From beginners, and it's like
just
6 hours long,
just like this.
I feel like there's so much.
There's
so much more to a podcast than let's sit down and talk about something. There's so much social commentary that has to happen, and you have to be like so communicative with your other hosts, otherwise it's gonna fall apart.
Communication is key.
Is key.
Wow, it's almost that's the advice everyone will give you, like at work, in relationships, in running a podcast. Communication is key. If you don't talk, nothing gets done.
Fascinating. It's almost because the point of a podcast is talking. So if you don't,
whoa, that's insane.
That one's for free. That one's for free. You can write that one down. So yeah, do you think we can come back from streaming?
No.
Or are we pretty much hooked?
I think so. Streaming started out and was meant to be this thing that was like, oh, let's screw over cable.
Mm-hmm. We're like, yeah,
we're going to be cheaper and like give you all of the things, and you can have a choice of what to watch. Because with cable, unless you had a DVR,
which everyone
I had
did.
A DVR.
I absolutely did.
Dude,
that's how I saw Passengers.
Recording episodes of the Clone Wars. And like,
did you have a TiVo?
No, we had a Comcast.
The Comcast.
Yeah, no joke. I hate Comcast. Dude, they suck. But yeah, we had a DVR. But if you didn't have a DVR, there was no way to control what you watched. And it was just kind of luck of the draw, random, whatever came on at whatever time.
Right.
So then Netflix comes out and they're like, hey, we can give you choice. You can watch whatever you want, skip to whenever you want, like, do whatever. Everyone got hooked. Everyone got hooked in with the lower prices. And what's so funny is old people will forever be wise beyond their years, because the second Disney Plus came out, I remember having a conversation with my granddad, because Disney Plus was only $8 a month.
Right.
And he was like, they're going to lure you in with the cheap prices, and then once everybody's hooked and comfortable, they will start hiking the prices. And that is exactly
what happened.
What is happening.
Yeah.
And it's like Netflix has us hooked in.
Even though they've raised the prices like 4 times
they're supposed to raise the prices again this year.
Disney's the same way.
But like, they have everyone hooked now. And as we saw last year with the getting rid of password sharing, people clearly aren't going to unsubscribe from Netflix.
Right.
So
like, what's Where do we go from here?
We don't.
Right.
Because here's the thing. We were given choice.
Yeah.
With streaming. But we want, like, there needs to be a middle ground between where streaming is at and where cable is at.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been given so much choice with streaming, we're never going to go back to cable not having that choice.
You can't go back.
Think about a platform like YouTube that is entirely fueled off of choice.
Yeah.
There's no going back to cable.
No.
So we need to figure out
what is the middle ground.
How do we reinvent streaming?
Yeah, which should be another really great episode, honestly.
Ooh.
I would love to do an episode. Yeah, write that down.
Write that down.
Jamie, can you write that down for us? Thank you. I think a really big point that I want to make here, when it may be a little too late to say this, digital media is inherently not bad. We're not saying digital media and streaming is the end of the world and you should cut all of your streaming subscriptions, live in a cabin in the middle of the woods.
Dude, that sounds sick about now, I'm not going to lie.
TBH.
Self-sustainable compound. I don't have to interact with the world at all. Dude, that's the life.
I'm not saying it's not tempting.
I got a generator. I'm not going to worry about anything. The world around me is burning down, but I got my DVD. I'm good.
That's your cold open. That's your. Oh my gosh. Listen. Digital media is not inherently bad. Streaming is not inherently bad. Streaming is a good idea that has gone too far.
Yes.
And so I think if we can find the middle ground of, and here's what's bizarre is we had it at one point. Like back when it was like Netflix, Hulu, Prime.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And it was like, yeah, you had the you had those three, and it was a cycling library of content, and, you know, new stuff got put there sometimes, and it was like, okay, let me check this out. So it's like, I would love to live in a world where I say, what should we watch? And the first question is, do you want to go to streaming or do you want to look at the shelf?
Right.
And then you say, okay, let's look at the shelf. Okay, do you want a movie or a show? Let's do a movie. Okay, what genre? Live action or animated? Okay, animated. Or you could say streaming. All right, do you want Netflix or Hulu? Hulu, you know? And you could craft that life for yourself, but I would love to, I think we were there at one point. I really think we had like a really good system where we had like the three streaming services, and you could throw Disney Plus in there if you want. And I think that another big draw to streaming that we haven't really touched on was the original content. Yes. When it was like, hey, come to Netflix because we have Stranger Things. And Hulu was like, well, come to Hulu, we have Only Murders. And Prime is like, okay, well, Top Gear got canceled. Come to Prime because we have the Grand Tour, which is just, you know, Top Gear with an American studio. And so everyone was like, okay, you based on like what you like. But now Disney Plus is like, come to Disney Plus because we have every single new Marvel show, bless you, on our platform. And if you want to go see the new movie in the theaters and understand the new movie, you need to watch all 8 of these shows that we just created. And it's like, okay, but streaming original content sucks. Yeah. We've not had a good streaming original in a long time. Also, original content. We did a whole episode about this. Streaming original content isn't real. It's just them buying the rights to say that it's an original.
Netflix.
So like Netflix. Anyway,
Netflix does that with anime all the time, and it drives me
like,
insane.
this is a Netflix original series, and it's like,
no, it's not. You just bought the rights from Crunchyroll.
Right.
You had more money to throw at it than Crunchyroll.
Right. So I don't know. We're kind of in a weird spot, and I think we're going to regret it. I think we're going to regret, you know, taking DVDs out of stores, and I think we're going to regret,
100%.
You know, having all digital consoles, and I think on the music side we'll probably be okay, honestly.
Well, here's something to think about. I don't think there's been a big scandal like this with a movie per se.
Right.
But think about like the Dungeons and Dragons episode of Community.
Right.
That is gone.
Yeah.
Scrubbed from the internet. Well, it's on YouTube. I found it. I'm gonna watch it.
Right.
But it's split up into 30 parts.
Right. It's pirated on a YouTube playlist.
It's gone. Like I shouldn't have to pirate that to see that. And like that's kind of the direction we're going. Is like, oh, if this thing is offensive, which like
right.
A lot of people broke that one specifically down. They're like, yeah, that might have been a little overreaction because like what you think he was doing is not what he was doing, but. Like, that episode's gone. Like, what happens if they do that with a movie? Like, that movie is gone unless you have the DVD, and you're going to regret not being able to readily access it. Right.
And, you know, just we've gotten in a really bad narrative with greedy studios, and, like, everything is a tax write-off, and it's just not... This isn't working. And so I'm just like...
No.
And I come back to this point of, what's the plan here, guys? What are we... Where do we go from here? And so just to kind of wrap up overall, because I don't want this to end doom and gloom, I think there's hope. I think we could, you know, go back to a lot of physical media and really like, you know, Disney is still trying to put their original series on Blu-rays. I mean, they're expensive as all get out, but you know, they're there.
Okay, hold on. I don't think $45 is expensive for a TV show.
Yeah, we haven't really... This is new territory because we've never tried to put limited series on DVDs.
We've never had limited series. It was always all for cable.
Right. It was either you do 8 seasons of TV or you do a movie. Like, which one do you want? Like,
you're not getting...
You don't get one season. Like, yeah. So I think we're in a weird middle ground where we're trying to figure that out. But Disney's still pushing those. And I really like, you know, we still have... all these stores that we just went to where we can buy all this stuff. And so it's like, it's still out there. You just have to decide for yourself if you want that.
Also, this might be one, super late into the episode. 2, this may sound really old, but go to a library.
No, for real.
Like every city has a library. They're basically free. Because they're government owned.
Right.
And you can rent out movies and books and games and CDs. Like,
the library is awesome. I have a library card. You can get a Libby account and get access to like every audiobook ever created if you have a library card. And it helps your communities. And you know, you could try out really crazy movies you'd never heard of.
And then you don't have to pay streaming actually.
Right.
Like when I wanted to watch Megamind last week, I could have gone to the library, rented it, to see if I liked it before buying the Blu-ray.
And here's this all harps back to what you were saying earlier. It's just like, I think it's genuinely better for us as humans to not be scrolling
on our
every
phone?
second of our lives.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to be scrolling for what we want to watch. We don't need to be scrolling on our phone during what we chose to watch. Like, we should like really... We should care what we watch. We should care enough to go to the store and pick something out, or go to the library, go to the Redbox, and pick something out and say, this looks really good.
Yeah.
Let's sit down and watch this. And I feel like we're not near as appreciative of what we're watching anymore. And we're just kind of like, turn it on, I don't care. And like, there's a time and a place for that. But like, you know, there's some really incredible movies out there that we should like take the time to sit down and give our attention to and care, because
100%.
like this is something I love. I love movies, and I want to be able to sit down and appreciate them in that way. And I really, really appreciate the experience of taking a DVD off the shelf, taking it out of the box, putting it in the player and pressing play on the menu, and then watching all the bonus features.
Yeah.
And so essentially, you know, if this is if you feel the same way, if you feel like this is a problem for you, then make that choice to go physical. Maybe not entirely. Like I'm not going to cancel my streaming subscriptions.
Right. You don't need to be a physical only person.
Right.
There's a healthy balance. Like my thing is, I'm going to own all my favorites physically.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I'm going to do digitally, because
right.
one, it's super expensive to do everything
right. That's
physically.
A lot.
Physical media is an expensive hobby to have.
Right. Aw, man.
Uh-oh.
Internal temp high. Allow it to cool.
I didn't know the camera could get that hot.
Dang.
I don't know how long it needs to cool for.
All right, Shadi.
Do we want to just end the episode?
Well, if you're watching on the video, it just blacked out.
The camera just burned.
The camera just said, guys, it's too hot in here. I got to go to sleep. So, anyway, we'll pull it up like a funny picture on screen.
I'll put a picture of us on screen.
Yeah, just pretend that it's us. You got to look at our beautiful faces for like almost 2 hours. So, that's fine. So, unless you have anything else to add.
Nope. This is God telling us to wrap it up.
God telling us to wrap
He's
up.
like,
I'm pretty hungry too.
Wrap it up. You got to eat.
All right,
you got another episode to do.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this episode talking about physical media and, where we're at in the world of streaming and everything, hey, head over to wherever you give your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever it is, and leave us a 5-star review. And it would mean the world to us, and it helps the show get out to more nerds just like yourself. And that being said, if you know a nerd you think will like this episode of the show and you just want someone to talk about it with, send it to them. Send it to your friends and your cousins and your weird nerdy uncle and like whoever you can. Word of mouth is the best way for us to grow. But if that's not enough for you, you can become a Spotify member and gain access to our monthly bonus show. Plus, be thanked live on the podcast. All you got to do is let us know that you're a subscriber because Spotify is awful and doesn't let us look at our member names, which sucks. So, thank you so much for supporting the show. If that's still not enough for you, follow us on Instagram at The Nerdiest Podcast, Twitter at Nerdiest Pod, and on YouTube at The Nerdiest Podcast, where we'll have amazing original content, updates on episodes when they're coming out, and new merch dropping soon at thenerdiestpodcast.com, thenerdiestpodcast.com. We will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Until then, bye.